Gentlemen, how's it going today?
Good.
Nice to see you, Chris.
Hey, great to see you. Zeph E. Daniel, Larry Wade Carrell, the filmmakers behind the dark side of society. We're going to take a look at the trailer. But before you guys were at Award This, and I hope you'll be at Award This again in 2026. I think chances are good, but tell us about the dark side of society.
You look at me. Well, it kind of started with I was telling Loris Kirchi, our producer, our producer overseas, when we were making Girl Next a few years ago, about I guess I was telling him about my story or telling him something in the cafeteria there when we were making this movie on the soundstage in Austin, and later on. He suggested doing it as a story, and it's a personal yes, but then again it's been like this whole, I don't know, my whole life is really healing from all that. It's what it really is.
Yeah, I mean it's how do you even describe it? It's a personal experience of yours. You're kind of recovering from. Why do you tell people the what that is?
I don't know why I kept talking to him. You know what I mean? Because he was like, he wasn't. I don't know if he was really understanding me, but I guess it stuck, and he just thought the idea of becoming a writer, as a way of processing trauma, let's say, or something that happened, and then using that to become a writer, and then that had to do with society itself, because there was all these rumors that would go around that Brian Usna would put out, not rumors, but he would tell people it was autobiographical and different things. And there are some unfortunately very dark things in society that that happened. Not the whole thing. I mean, obviously it's a fantasy story, but there's a lot kind of that it touches on, and that was by design, because in fact. You want to know something really strange? When we got the screenplay to Brian Usna, it was because I had a partner that I took on for because the third act I was losing my mind, so I added a partner to prevent me from going off the cliff, and then a movie that they were working on, a pretty cool horror movie, it fell through. I think it was going to be at Saban or some place like that. And so he handed him Society. And at that time, I mean, it's a long story, but I mean, at that time, I was convinced that I was convinced it was fiction. And don't ask me how you get that brainwashed or screwed up to where reality is fiction, fiction's reality. But that's the state I was in at the very beginning of this. And eventually, there was a phone call. I think we were working on another version of the script. The script got greenlit. I mean, how lucky can you be? I just went to like a screenplay school, a writing, program, because I was having panic attacks. I couldn't leave the house during the day. So this one was at night. So I went there. And the first thing I started writing was this. I got out, I would, sneak around writing it, and I'd lock it up in the drawer. Like, it's almost like I was looking at porno and then locking it up. That's how I felt, ashamed of it. But,
at least the Attorney General of the United States is not involved in anything regarding those circumstances. But why don't we watch the trailer so people know what we're talking about? We're kind of dancing around, but I have the trailer queued up here. I think we should all watch it together, and we'll talk about it on the other side. So here we go.
Don't get too hot.
Society really, I guess, embodies that basic paranoid archetype. The notion that the whole world, the conventional civilization, society is lying to us.
It is a microscope put onto an elite upper class.
A lot of today's
horror filmmakers like Gary Aster and Jordan Peele. You could just feel that they must have been watching this film on late night TV when they were growing up.
The upper class, hey, you're a different species from us.
Basic concept of this whole movie is the paranoia.
The rich are truly different.
I wrote the screenplay and didn't know what I wrote. In case you don't know this is real, it's real. It happened.
When Woody Keith wrote the script for Society, he thought he was writing a piece of fiction. It turns out Woody was exorcising demons.
This is an autobiography.
You subconsciously or unsubconsciously wrote Society, not realizing that it was things that happened.
Literally.
To you.
Journey back through the rich history of California, and you will find Keith there.
He wanted to please his parents. He wanted everything to be fine. You know, he loved them. It's supposed to be a loving family, and yet some really unloving things happened.
Well, what I saw when I was a child was, there was satanic ritual abuse involving children and adults being groomed for sex. Thought I was going to die.
We're essentially being set up for sacrifice or use as fuel or breeding stock by a privileged, inhuman elite.
Well, in the words of some of these people, like in the words of my own mother, it was like, well, that happens to everybody.
If you've got so much money, so much time to waste, what are you going to do? You're going to sort of like exercise probably the worst tastes and the worst sort of extremes that you're ever going to go through.
These people are everywhere. Everyone knows that story is real.
Man, that is so impactful. So people don't know, Society is a classic horror film, right? And I mean, I did not know this story. So like, and that movie has probably aged well in the sense that we see things playing out in the news media now that kind of reflect that. I don't know how specific you want to get, but they're like, I mean, it seems like things are playing out now that are exposing the things that movie did back then. Can you like walk us through it?
Well, I mean, all I can say is as these things get uncovered and the truth gets to be known, I don't sound so crazy, which I've enjoyed that. You know what I mean? Because otherwise,
you and Alex Jones, there's an account on the social.
Well, but yeah, the difference between us is that I was in this thing. I had no idea what the hell was going on, and it just wasn't for me, and I just and then I'm eventually learning that, well, the whole world is running on the same system, and we're all learning that, and that everything is corrupt, nothing is pure, and especially government, and we're mind controlled, and we're taken in, and we believe all these things. We have these mores we follow, and these practices of marriage and children and different, and now it's turning out that I was talking today about the 300 and some odd thousand children that were missing in the last administration that they keep saying they're going to go after, and I keep saying they're not there. There are no 300,000 survivors. They're dead. And that's as far as I want to go with it today. I don't want to just get really twisted here, but seeing my mother there, oh my God, that's true horror. It got to the point with me where if I just saw a guy with golf clubs, I'd get traumatized, with cleats and golf club, being a member of the golf club, a lot of the business deals and a lot of the stuff that we endure goes on in those kind of settings.
Well, it's strange how in fiction, whether it's science fiction predicting what will happen in the future, or in fiction you see recurring themes of secret societies and evil being done kind of behind closed doors. This Society is not the only movie that has done that, but the only one I can think of where you're directly witness to all of that and that trauma kind of coming back. How did the documentary evolve? Tell me about that process.
We were, when I started working with Zeph and we're doing Girl Next, I would ask him about society and stuff, thinking I was going to get some juicy behind the scenes on Screaming Mad George and Yuzna and all the rubber and stuff. He laid this story on me, and I'm from Alvin, Texas.
Sorry.
I mean, no, but I mean, he told me, and it just kind of blew my mind. And he's told me several times. I've heard him tell the story. It never changes. It's just so wild. And we had finished The Quantum Devil, award this indie horror last year. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
But
awesome.
we had finished that, and we had the rebate coming back from the government of Serbia, and our producer Laurie says, "Hey, why don't we make a documentary about Zeph's story?" I said, "Oh, that's a good thing." And he said, "You should direct it." I said, "Oh no."
You must direct it.
No, well, I'd never done a documentary, and then also too, because Zeph and I are partners and friends. I mean, we're almost like family. It's you're telling somebody's real life story. It's not like ripping people's arms out of their sockets and stuff, and creating a world. And it was a big, because I'd never done a documentary before, and it was a big learning experience because we went all through it, and we made the movie, and I got it cut together. Then I got introduced to Donaldson, Califf, and Perez, our attorneys for the clearances, and we spent another 8-9 months clearing the thing so we could release it.
Well, do you think, are you going to get some pushback by this movie being released? I mean, it's gonna be out there.
I did not kill myself.
Yes, say that up front. But
I did not. I'm not suicidal. I'm in therapy.
Are you concerned there could be pushback?
Well, there's been a lot of pushback since for so many years, and and it's explained in the doc too. You'd have to see that, and I do some explaining, and then I have a podcast. Basically, I think it's just called the Zeph Daniel Podcast, where I do go into more detail about things and my observations about the world and spirituality, all kinds of things. But yeah, there's been stalking, and there's been murder attempts and things like that.
There's someone right now that's trying.
I know this is really weird. Where is that?
Okay. So what? I'm just curious because the movie is kind of this weird cult horror classic, and
not me.
No, it's not me. Not me.
Sorry.
It's hopefully they'll there you go. It happens. It happens. It's
on
live TV. But like the film is obviously a fictionalized, but you hear like Alex Jones say lizard people, you hear, there's an account Alex Jones was right. All the things it's a conspiracy theory. They brush it off. And now we have real life playing out where, I mean, I'll just say it, Epstein, right? Those files will never be released. We will never know the truth.
No, they're gone.
They're gone. That stuff is all gone.
Yep.
All due respect. I think that there are levels of society. We'll never know the truth, but you're a witness to some version of that. I'm not saying Epstein, but another version.
Yeah. The way to think of it is just basically like a subterranean global criminal organized crime,
right.
That's the best metaphor. It's organized crime. And it permeates, governments and countries. They don't believe we have a country, They believe the world is their oyster and that's their country. And that we're here to just provide them with their wealth and privilege and their good time. I mean, there's one of the things that was so, incredible is to see people that act so entitled. And you realize that one bad business cycle or one bad thing, and they'd be on the street. but there's like no humility after. And the kids growing up, they just grow up really, just a lot of times, not with humility, but arrogant. And then they go to the Ivy League schools, which there's a path there through Southern California from prep school to Ivy League, and then they get placed in these various high positions and of power around the world. And it's if anyone steps out of line, they get it's over for them. That would also go for actors, or like say famous actors or rock stars or whatever. They're just considered influencers, and they're bought and paid for, and they're good for a season. But it's not, if they do something wrong, all that goodwill just goes away pretty much immediately. So they can get to anyone. I'm just saying, with me, I'm just a little on me. They can, if I'm a problem, because I came from a family with a famous grandfather that was running LA at the time, and back in the 40s when it was really corrupt after World War II, and people were writing, that was when the mob was trying to take over LA, and so there was so naturally they would push this way of life. And this is like the last thing that I'd want to do. I mean, I don't want to be a criminal. I don't want to kill anybody. Okay. It's like one of the things you have to do. I don't want to do it. So it's not
you mentioned LA being corrupt in the past. I don't know if it's changed. I got to be honest. I live in California. Yeah. I don't know that it's changed. So,
well, back then, it was much more centralized with a certain group of people. And I think we all know who we're talking about. We're talking about, the moving in of Disney, Disneyland, you've got the Hughes Corporation, all you had in the Valley there and out, you had all the military industrial complex, weapons makers, Boeing and all that. So I was exposed to a lot of that stuff. And then you had what you might call the industrialists, the Arm & Hammers, my grandfather, you had, some famous, the Hilton family and their power, and all these people, what's going on the surface and on the news is not even close to what's going on. It's a power struggle underneath that people don't see. And they can have you killed just if you say the wrong thing. I mean, it used to be a lot more strict than it is now. So if you would say the wrong thing or thought you would be a problem or there would be a problem in the future, then it was up to the family to take care of your murder. And if they want to maintain their lifestyle and their privilege, they would kill the firstborn often. And of course it's a suicide. No. And then the secondborn would go on and learn, be terrified of that. So usually the secondborn would be the one that would go on and achieve, if you will.
Horror is kind of used to deal with a lot of fears, a lot of things in the world, and the world of fantasy and horror is a way to talk about something you can't say out loud. And so society did that. Sir. Society did that, but then it how did it really bubble where it's just like, well, this is really kind of based on some real things. How did that just
they didn't know. I mean, at the time I got this phone call from this gal that used to work for my mother or something, and she was working with a casting director. I mean, how this happened, and she said, and they were casting it, and he read, and I said, hello, it's Lisa, yes, hello. And she says, I just read the script. It's all real. And then I kind of flipped out. I actually see now I'm starting to have to come face to face with it. And I thought, because my writing partner at the time, Rick Fry, great writer, by the way, he didn't believe, like I said, my story doesn't change me. He thought I was crazy. I mean, we were friends though. And I remember one time I would drive him around, the area where this story occurred. And, oddly enough, LA also went through the Menendez thing where we had the Menendez brothers who killed where the trauma I went through took place, of which I believe would be a murder in Beverly Hills of me. And I, you know, that's the scene in Society where the character Billy holds them off with a knife, and that happened exactly. The difference between the Menendez thing and my thing was, I mean, had I seen, they were hiding in the rooms, all the rooms were locked, and the house was completely black, like a black mass type of thing. I mean, I hate to put it in satanic terms, but because that's such a broad thing. But and I had the knife out, and I was ready to go to town, you know, and to defend myself after being set up to walk into this trap. And in fact, then the next morning I was removed by an ambulance, and a court order to put me away in a lockup facility. It was a psychiatric ICU, best I could put it. And then from there began this long journey of, you know, incidents like that in hospitals and psychiatrists and all kinds of, you know, drugs. And really by that time, my reputation was completely ruined. So, you know, but before I even reached 20, I was done. So then what do you do? So I went off.
You forgot the best part, Zeph.
What is it?
You tell them where you grew up and where they grew up and how y'all.
Oh, the Menendez?
Yeah.
Well, Dominic Dunn, remember Dominic Dunn?
Oh yeah.
Dominic Dunn wrote
Writer.
Great
Dominic
writer.
Dunn.
Great writer, but I don't care because he's not. He's a cover-upper. But anyway.
Really?
Oh yes.
Wow.
So, but not like going after each story, but he was very much, you know, want to throw the book at the Menendezes. Well, they lived. Is this it, Larry? They lived at the house this took place at was on Elm Drive, and they lived 4 doors up. This was 10 years later. You know, 4 doors away.
Like the same cycle of abuse that's going on,
Same
even though
thing.
it's different.
And they believe that
generations.
and I would love to tell them that, you know, the father Jose and the mother Kitty, you know, the funny odd thing is we were doing a movie produced by Live, which he was the head of at the time. So that even makes it more bizarre. And then nobody believed their story. OJ walked. And I think what happened is then after that, they're ready to throw the book at, you know, they said, oh, it's poor rich kids, you know, they think abuse is a good excuse for murder. We're going to throw the book at them. You know, they're never going to get out. And the thing that they never understood, I mean, at least in the documentaries, they never understood that, you know, the father and the mother had to be part of a wider network. All these people exist and coexist in networks. All of Beverly Hills, all of LA, all of the, you know, there are networks, and you discover the networks and the power center. I'm not saying that all networks are evil. I'm just saying there are networks. And it was alluded to in one of the docs. I don't know which one. I'm not sure which boy said it, but it was alluded to. And I always thought, I wonder if they really knew the whole truth about, you know, Beverly Hills and what it really was. Because they moved there from like Woodland Hills, I think. So, or not Woodland Hills, but Calabasas, maybe something like that. Okay. And then they moved to Elm Drive. And I just thought it was so strange because I could have been in their shoes pretty easily with that. Not had I knifed anybody, because I was trying to survive, filled with adrenaline. And they'd set me up, and this girl had dropped me off at like 2 a.m. And they're all just, you can hear them in their breathing and you know, and really the terms of my getting out of the hospital in the Midwest, we'll just not say the name. I had to, it's like sign a thing that said, there were no people there that night. Were there, Woody? There were no people there waiting to kill you. Were there, Woody? No. And if I would say that and agree with that, then I would get to go to the next level of freedom or whatever, which was, in my case was, I had some drums, and I went out to join a country band, just play drums in dive bars, you know? So that's kind of, it's amazing that they picked on that one night with all the, you know, group therapy and, you know, the parents sitting there and also at that time, I agreed that I was sick. I was crazy, and they diagnosed me with whatever. And I played that role. You're right. There were no people there that night. Nope, never were there. It was all in my imagination. And
so, sorry to jump in. How are people going to react to this documentary?
They'll be divided.
Well,
I expect
think
that.
the important thing is that
I can take it.
well, I mean, but
For Larry.
anytime you put yourself out there and make a movie or do anything, you get attacked. You know, it's the IMDb trolls and my favorite one I got
Well,
was the guy.
Your movie, though, this is your movie, and the edit is brilliant because it doesn't push an agenda from me. All we're no one's asking anyone to believe anything.
Yeah, well, that
was genius. You didn't have to cut it that way. I think that was our saving grace right there.
Don't give it away.
Well, if they want to believe that I'm nuts, that's fine.
Well, no, I mean, it's certainly going to change the way people look back on society, the film society.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that was interesting to me. What was interesting was that, you know, they always tell you write what you know, and you know, we have these great actors or these tortured people, and I thought it was interesting, like how much, you know, I loved Society when I was a kid. We wore that tape out, you know, it was very inspirational.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought that it was based on reality. And I thought that was very interesting how Zeph was able to take something like that and then transform it into art, into movies. And I wanted to tell a story. One thing I do think, unfortunately, the trailer's a little misleading is it kind of feels like you're going to get a behind the scenes of Society and like into the makeup, special effects, you know, your typical thing. But really, we just kind of touch on that because it's really Zeph's story. And Zeph has a right to tell his story. It doesn't matter what people believe or don't believe. He's just telling you what happened to him. And I mean, for me, I think by the end of it, it's like inspirational. Somebody could go through that horrible thing that he went through and it's still be alive, but not only alive, but thriving, you know, and here he is now where we're doing Crazed House. He's still making movies. He's still writing. You know, he's traveling the world, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think people that have encountered abuse will identify with that. Maybe it'll give them some.
Well,
hope.
Well, even Richard Stanley said he was an abuse victim, but he did not agree with my take on things, and that's fine. Thank God you left that in like that. You know, I mean, you know, my daughter also had the same thing and got hardwired, you know, to want to be abused. And when, you know, and she in 2018 she killed herself because she couldn't just have a normal relationship. And I think the shrinks in Italy had something to do with it. But anyway, bottom line is that's when I went back into film. I couldn't take it. That was too much. And so I needed something to ground me. I needed something or I couldn't survive. So
we brought up the crazedhouse.com website.
Yeah.
With all the films here, including Quantum Devil, Angel's Tide, but Darkside of Society is on here. It's now in release. Just want to be clear.
The 13th, next Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
DVD Tuesday.
Yeah, there you go. So May 13th. I don't know when people will be watching this, but yeah, crazedhouse.com. Go for more info. I feel like this we really need to do a much deeper dive interview with this to get people to know kind of the history, because this is, if you think about it, this is decades long culmination of this story to be revealed. Mm-hmm. And it's being revealed. I think there's a lot of things that are not going to ever be revealed regarding the Epstein, but this is kind of the closest to an Epstein-like situation where it's
they're the traffic. You hear about trafficking. They're the traffickers. Right. Yeah. That's what they do. And they blackmail you so that you have to shut up. And that's how they keep the lid on it. I mean, that's, you know, they do that to everybody pretty much. Me couldn't, because I had escaped. I guess the loony bin was kind of like a sanctuary in a way, because I was protected from that. They couldn't get me in there. They almost got me that one night that I had the knife, you know, but that after that, they couldn't just come in and, you know, do something to me. So I was kind of like aware that I was well, by then I was really, it took a long time to climb out of that hole. But the thing is writing movies became a way of expression, and screenwriting became, I got hooked on it right away. And it was so therapeutic and so cool. And I've met a lot of people with stories, too, along the way. And I'm like, you've got to get that thing down. And, we need to see that. We need to hear your perspective. But, the big giant bully of corporate filmocracy, basically is preventing a lot of these voices from coming to into view. And it's funny, I talked to someone yesterday. They go, let's not kid ourselves. There is no free speech. There just isn't. And
there's always a cost.
You were telling me that. You told me that, Larry. There is no free speech.
There's always a cost.
Well, look, the movie is out Tuesday, May 13th. If you're watching this, it may be after that date, but check out The Dark Side of Society, the documentary. Get more info at crazedhouse.com, and probably watch the movie along with a double feature with Society from 1989.
There's a festival that wants us to have the doc and Society. And
yeah, it needs to be a double feature. They need to be seen together, because I think it's the only way to really get the story out.
Well, I think, it's really the people involved in making Brian Usna. He was really the right person for this, because he had such a thing about society. It's hard to explain. I mean, a lot of this was, private talk, but it was just, the class warfare, society, all that. It was something that occupied his time and his discussions with me. And then bringing in Screaming Mad George was probably the most awesome.
He's great. He's great. I knew him. I knew him back in the day. He was awesome.
Hey, all right.
Anybody. He was super chill, and he loved gore effects.
Yeah. And in the beginning, we were kind of banned in America. Tony Timpone talks about that, but we tried to four-wall it in England, in London, and there was a line around the block. I mean, it became like this big kind of hit out of nowhere that nobody expected.
But
then it grew, and then eventually, like 2 years later, it got to the States finally.
Well, that's actually good advertising, to be banned or censored.
Oh,
that can help. It can help in movies. Gentlemen, I could talk to you all day. In fact, I think we should have you back and do another interview. Allow members of our audience to talk to you. But thank you so much for talking to me on the show.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for backing up independent voices out there.
Yes.
That's our
really
job.
Needed, much needed. Everybody get involved with this film threat, please. Your life depends on it. Your sanity depends on it.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Movie.